Broadcasting Network.
'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven.
A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at UBNradio.com.
Hey, everybody, it is Wednesday, May the 6th. I'm Emerson Collins.
And I'm Del Shores.
And you're listening to
The Del and Emerson Show. Straight talk.
Real guy! Yay! Hi, Del Shores.
Hello, Emerson Collins.
How are you today?
I'm doing all right. How you doing?
I'm so good. How was your weekend? You had a busy weekend.
I had a crazy weekend.
Tell us about it.
Well, I was in Palm Springs Thursday and Friday, 2 sold-out shows there at the Purple Room. I got to see Miss Bonnie Bedelia, Mr. David Steen, Bobby Eakes, and Michael McRae, Bonnie's husband. It was such a fun reunion for us. And I had good shows. And you were at my show here on Sunday night, another sold-out show. At
the Los Angeles premiere of Singularly Sorted.
Yes, it was my favorite LA show, actually.
It was super fun.
Because it's weird when you play your own audience in your own town. There's so many people, familiar faces in the audience. It's a little different because you're actually... It feels like you're in your living room sometimes. So, and I always feel the judgments are a little more harsh, don't you?
Well, LA is a difficult town to do any kind of show in because everybody's related to entertainment and everybody sits with their arms crossed watching a show. But your audiences are always quite responsive.
Oh, they were so sweet. And my good friend Magnolia Mills, played by McGee Monteith with Jameson Hollister, opened for me. And they opened so great with country classic songs and bitterness, which is always fun to play. So
you're watching on the webcast. I'm having a hard time. This microphone's a little wobbly
You're
today.
usually okay, better with a pole.
I know.
Without your.
It's like it's a little loose.
So people want to know. I was reading on our fan page. How is your thumb, Emerson?
Well, it's still
Everybody's so
traumatized.
concerned. There's prayer lists going on.
You can see it on the webcam. It is not cute, but it doesn't hurt anymore. But it is a constant reminder that I will never make a good lesbian.
Maybe you should just start painting that black completely, or the whole hand.
What, and work at Hot Topic? Like, what am I going to do with one black fingernail?
Or all of them black. Just make a meal out of that hand.
That's not really my look.
Well, it could be.
It's
while
not.
You heal.
It's not.
Well, while you heal. Well,
but it was also this weekend. This weekend,
Lots
it was
of
like
stuff.
the craziest news weekend. There was so much happening in the world. There was that big sports ball fight between the homophobe and the wife beater.
And who? I didn't see it.
The domestic abuser won, although now there's a big old scandal because the homophobe had some shoulder injury that he did not disclose, and I think it's just a mass ploy for marketing, but that's all I have to care about.
But he lost. The homophobe lost.
He did.
So were we rooting for the wife beater over the homophobe? It's hard to tell who to root for.
Like,
with
none of the above.
Such selections.
So that happened, and of course the Kentucky Derby happened. And
I just like the hats.
That is the only reason. I watched some girl on Periscope. She just walked around the Kentucky Derby showing off the hats, and it was my favorite thing I saw all weekend.
I was watching the news, like CNN, and they were wearing the hats.
Yes.
And it was like at 9 a.m, the hats came out.
I'm like, I feel like the Kentucky Derby would work better if they started them at a glue factory and just had them run away from it.
Oh,
It'd be motivation.
you're terrible.
Well, and a horse named American Pharaoh, I believe, won.
Oh, I didn't know. See, I don't know anything.
Feels like some kind of Egyptian appropriation to me.
I care about the hats. I don't give a shit who wins.
And the royal baby was born.
The baby, and they got a girl.
They did. Now, here's my thing. They obviously let some of their campy gay friends help decide this name because, the royals, they all have 17 names. And her names are Charlotte, Elizabeth, Diana. Now, that is clearly inspired by Sex and the City, Showgirls, and Wonder Woman, which might be the gayest name of all time. Because you have Charlotte, Sex and the City, and Elizabeth Berkley from Showgirls, and Diana, the Amazonian princess from Wonder Woman.
There's some royalty named.
I don't understand.
You don't want to.
I mean, maybe Charlotte was from the Bronte
Let's
sisters.
just go with that, though. I think that's better for our show.
Yes.
And then we've got Britney Spears.
She released a new track.
I've listened this morning after you wrote this outline, and I kind of like it.
I love that it's only 2 minutes and 45 seconds long. It's
short.
barely a song.
It's short.
I mean, she barely sings, Iggy barely raps, but it's Britney, so I love it.
I think there's 12 words total in the whole thing.
Yes.
I'm not sure. But it's not as good. For me, the Iggy Azalea, Jennifer Hudson song is so much better. But
I have not heard that.
You haven't?
No, I don't really care about Iggy Azalea, so...
Oh, I love this one. I mean, I had not known her until the Jennifer Hudson, but I love Jennifer Hudson, and she looks great in the video.
And of course, then Monday night was the Met Gala, which is just like the night to wear your weirdest costume clothes, I guess.
Okay.
Do you not know anything about this?
No.
It's like the gay fashion Super Bowl of sorts. The Met Gala, it's hosted every year. I believe it benefits the Costume Institute, though I'm not entirely sure what they do. And it's just like all of the A-list celebrities show up in like the strangest, largest,
Oh, I did see that.
most haute couture fashion gowns.
Yeah, I didn't really know what. I sort of caught the tail end of the story on some newscast. Now, where is this? Where does it
In New York.
In New York. Okay. All right.
So it was a big all weekend.
Big weekend, and we have some equality updates. It's coming in.
Yes,
so
we do. Well, in our equality update, Texas has made the news this week for a number. We're not even
Several times.
Yes, well, we're not even going to get into that whole like they're worried about Obama trying to take over Texas nonsense. That this new governor might be the craziest one they've had yet. But in religious freedom news, Senator Craig Estes introduced a new religious freedom bill that has been fast-tracked through the Texas legislature. And, of course, a bunch of pastors showed up to spout off the standard list of ridiculous bigotry. They trotted out, adultery. They compared it to adultery and domestic abuse and pedophilia, polygamy, and more. Some even denounced gay couples in other states and accused them of bullying, bigotry, and hate crimes for allegedly trying to force pastors to perform their weddings. Now, I don't believe there's been a single story evidence anywhere in the country yet of a gay couple trying to force a religious pastor to perform a marriage
ceremony.
ceremony.
Who would want them to? I mean, you don't want some old bigot to perform your marriage.
That's just nonsense.
It's like ridiculous.
Well, Bruce Engelman, the pastor of the Baptist Temple in Fort Worth, said, "Where are we going to stop this? Let's get to the chase. Where's it going to stop? I heard of a woman in Florida that married a dog. Am I going to have to perform a wedding ceremony for an animal and a human being?" Of course, not to be outdone, David Joyner, the pastor of Life Springs Church, said, "Over the years, I believe we've heard of people that want and tried to pass pedophilia. That's what's in their heart. They bring it up because that's where they lean toward. Just think if it passed one day and they said, well, you have to marry this 16-year-old boy to this guy or whatever."
That is so intelligent. That is such an intelligent quote. And I Googled woman marrying dog. It did not happen.
And but this was actual testimony in the legislature in Texas.
Do you think anybody gets the church giggles when these people start? I mean, I would just burst out laughing.
And they weren't even booed out of the room. Like, fine, if you want to say your religion says that all homosexuals are going to hell, fine, say that. But marrying dogs and pedophiles, can we not get past these arguments?
Well, I'm telling you, Emerson, I believe that they're helping our cause. I really do. I mean, a report came out today, WSJ NBC poll, and they asked people a series of questions and asked them if they would be comfortable, have reservations about, or be very uncomfortable with a candidate that was lesbian or gay. 61% said that they would either be enthusiastic and comfortable with a gay or lesbian candidate for president, and then 52% said they'd be enthusiastic or comfortable with evangelical Christian running for president. So the gays are winning in polls now,
which is interesting, because
I think they just know we're smarter.
Well,
than
I posted
this
about
rhetoric.
that. And said, what it really should be is a challenge to people who consider themselves evangelical Christians to speak up and speak louder than the crazy people that are always getting attention. Because I posted it on my Facebook, and I said, of course, I don't have a problem with an evangelical Christian being elected president as long as they govern according to the Constitution and not their personal religious beliefs. And I believe there are many that could. Unfortunately, we keep ending up with people
Jimmy
at
Carter
the forefront of their party who essentially seem like they want to, just use the Bible instead of the Constitution. So, and also, but related to the Texas, G Squared Public Strategies released a new poll from April of likely Texan voters that said that 62.6% of Texans are somewhat or strongly support a state law that protects gay and lesbian people from employment discrimination. So even in Texas, with this crazy rhetoric, more than half the population is on the side of LGBT equality and equal treatment. They just need to speak louder.
And when are the politicians going to start listening to these polls? Because it doesn't seem like a lot of them are listening to the polls. Is this our last? I mean, is this our last go round with all of this hateful rhetoric?
I don't think in certain states it isn't. It may be in the national
or counties.
It may be in the last time in a presidential election, but I don't think it's the last time in some of Texas is about as far to the right as it gets, as far as actual elected politicians.
They seem to be leading now. I mean, for a while it was Alabama, but it seems to be leading in the hateful rhetoric. And
Well, and seriously, it's not even on here, but that nonsense story about the governor of Texas pandering to those crazies who think that Obama is coming to create martial law in Texas. This is a real thing and a real news story that the governor of Texas is now engaging in, as if Obama is invading Texas.
I think Obama should just say, "No, I'm not."
No one wants
Like,
it.
it's just crazy.
So embarrassing as Texans.
And we've got some international news. As
Yes,
well.
and of course headed towards the Ireland as a huge Catholic country is headed towards a marriage equality referendum on May the 22nd, and there was a big debate held on the issue last week, and a man stood up in the audience, and this just makes me crazy. Paddy Manning, a gay man campaigning for a no vote, spoke from the audience. And he said growing up gay in Ireland was a terrifying experience. However, he then hit out at the charities campaigning in support of the constitutional change. He said, I was going to try to do an Irish accent, and it's just going to be terrible. I'm going to sound all Lucky Charms.
You know, all of mine are Mexican. Whatever I do is.
I don't care what these charities say. I don't care how they are being misled. I don't care how they are cozying up to the consensus politicians for money. I know what it's like to love. I know what it's like to lose. And I know the heartbreak. But I also know that the best place for children is with a mother and a father.
That was not bad. Now I'm
Well,
sure
I did it in a musical once, but I just wasn't prepared.
We do have some Irish fans, so they're probably just
laughing at my Lucky Charms. But there is nothing worse to me. If you're gay and you don't want to be a parent or you don't want to get married, that's fine. But why on earth would you campaign against equality for us, for your own community?
Absolutely. Shame on Patty. Shame on Patty Manning. Well, we also have some victory here. The Supreme Court upheld the New Jersey conversion therapy ban. The court refused to hear a challenge to the ruling from 3rd U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals upholding the ban of conversion therapy for minors in New Jersey. Earlier this year, a New Jersey judge ruled misrepresenting homosexuality as a disorder in marketing conversion therapy services is consumer fraud, and so they upheld that. So that's a victory.
Yeah,
Great
it's
victory.
exciting. Well, and that they haven't chose to hear the case. I mean, it's a very sort of new issue on the national stage, and I think once the same thing. If the event somewhere down the road, there will probably be a circuit court that rules in opposition to us, and then the Supreme Court might have to take it up. But it may be a couple of years before they rule on banning reparative therapy for minors, but it's an exciting step that they're letting these decisions stand.
And so flashing through the gay news.
Flashing through the gay news.
We have some
Everybody
prancers.
Take your top up. Okay, Oxygen has a brand new show called The Prancing Elites that has had 2 episodes air. It airs on Wednesday nights. The 3rd episode airs tonight. And when I first saw the commercials for the show, I was a little bit, are we just super reinforcing a gay stereotype? And I watched the first half hour and I nearly cried.
I did cry in the second one. I didn't get to first one because for some reason my cable doesn't have Oxygen, so I had to watch it online. But I met these guys at Central Alabama Pride when I was performing down there. You got a picture in the chat room, right, John? And I loved them because they're fierce. They stand up for what they believe, and they are actually making a huge difference in mentality because they're so entertaining.
Well, they are a dance troupe.
Yes.
It is 5 guys that do what they call J setting. For those of you listening at home, you would be most familiar with it because it is the inspiration for the style of dance that is done in the Single Ladies video.
Oh.
Uh-huh.
Good
It was
for
started at a college there.
kids.
I believe that they said it in the pilot. I was very fascinated, but it was really interesting watching because in the pilot episode, there was a story. I think it's part of why they got the series that they danced in a Christmas parade, and there was a lot of response saying it wasn't appropriate for families and children. And in the first episode, they go to dance at a parade that they were not allowed to dance at, and you see them dancing beside the parade. But I was looking at the people around them. They're in Mobile, Alabama, and I genuinely had a moment of, if the cameras weren't there, these gentlemen might be in actual danger.
Right.
You know, and
I think the next episode there is some of that.
well, and then you see in the second episode one of the boys talking to his mother about how she
Broke
has
my
come to
heart.
see all of his siblings do whatever it is they do, but she's never been to see one of his performances as a dancer. And it was incredibly touching because they're very unaffected. They are all larger than life personalities, but they're very sort of honest and unfiltered, and I find it genuinely incredibly inspiring.
And being from Alabama, and as we all know, it's horrible down there for any young gay person in many many cultures and communities and religion, but the black community is known for their homophobia because of the scriptures. And so they are really fighting the fight. I love that second episode where they weren't allowed to compete. So they just thought, well, okay, we're going to
put on our own show.
We're put on our own show, host it. So the people who, like us, who could not compete, the boys could not compete against the girls, can now compete. And they were so wonderful.
So if you haven't, check it out. It's on Oxygen. They're half-hour episodes, but I think that you will find it both entertaining and inspiring to watch these five guys sort of loudly and proudly do what they love in an environment that might not be particularly supportive.
Yes, and we have new Republican candidates.
Oh, the field is just swelling.
Let's have the applause. Not that one, John. This one. Okay, it's Dr. Ben Carson. It's just a plethora of homophobes.
All of them.
Mike Huckabee has joined. Oh, so we're going to get a wonderful quote from him. And Carly, how do you say her name? Fiorina. Okay, this Mike Huckabee quote. Listen to this, John. It is now difficult to keep track of the vast array of publicly endorsed and institutionally supported aberrations, from homosexuality and pedophilia to sadomasochism and necrophilia. He threw in necrophilia. Someone's fucking the dead.
Everybody has a type.
It's so.
But yes, it's of course, and you all know Dr. Ben Carson, one of the foremost neurosurgeons in the country, now retired, who was 2 months ago said that one of the reasons being gay is a choice because men go into prison and come out gay. He was that guy,
and he's a doctor. I mean, we could kind of go, okay, Mike Huckabee's he's a Baptist preacher, so you expect, right?
But this hashtag silver lining to this entire situation is that the Republican primaries are going to be so much fun to watch these debates.
And there are going to be a lot of people on that stage if people don't start dropping out. I mean,
there's still more to join.
It's.
I can't wait.
I think it's because they're just going, hey, somebody can get this nomination, and
it's
there's
just
nobody that's a front runner.
Spin the wheel of crazy.
They don't have a Hillary.
I can't wait.
So, all right. So we've got
a
great uplifting story now.
Yes, this story broke into the news last week, but the event actually happened this weekend. I'm sure many of you saw. Anthony Martinez was a junior who is an openly gay student at Desert Oasis High School in Las Vegas. And the original story goes that he had tweeted that he is on student council and he would love to have a date to his dance. He wanted to be asked by a guy. He didn't care. It didn't have to be romantic. He just wanted a date. And his best friend Jacob put up a giant banner at their school that said, "You're hella gay, I'm hella straight, but you're like my brother, so be my date." That went super viral. And of course, the boys were on Ellen this week talking about the story. She gave them scholarships. And the actual prom happened this weekend. And Teen Vogue followed them around. And you got to see them go shopping for their tuxedos at Top Shop, whatever it is. Top Man, whatever it is. Bottom Man, Bottom Shop. And then actually go to the dance. And I thought it was wonderful. And it's just a wonderfully lovely story.
I just love that he said he's my best friend and a real man, given the fact he has the guts to fulfill my gay student council dream of always helping me plan dances and never get asked. I couldn't ask for a better person in my life. It's like, times are changing.
Well, and I love it because, I posted the story.
Oh, those are beautiful.
And someone said, I don't know why this is even newsworthy. And I said, people have been going as friends to prom, basically since prom was invented. But this is the first time I've ever heard of two boys going together that weren't both gay. That it was like, well, if I'm just going to go with a friend, I can go with my gay friend because who cares? We're just going to have a good time with all of our friends at the prom.
That person, whoever it was, I hope they're listening. If they're your that person is an unhappy person. Because if you can't see that this is newsworthy just because it's an uplifting story. I mean, they get a dog out of tar and we all cry. So come on.
I don't.
Yeah, well, no, you don't cry at much of anything. But you cried at the Dancing Elites.
I did.
You almost cried.
I know. I teared up watching this story because I thought about
me too. That sign.
Because yes, I hope that next year, Anthony, for his senior year, that there is a gay boy somewhere in the greater Las Vegas area that they meet and find each other who wants to be a romantic date for him. And obviously, that's the real goal. This isn't the
course.
be all end all. But I thought I cannot even fathom this having happened when I was in high school. Of it being fine enough for us to go in a group and my pairing to be with a guy, even if he wasn't someone that I was interested in.
I'm
I
telling
just
you,
thought it was
it's like an Outfest centerpiece film.
Yes.
The prom.
Totally.
It's like great.
And in other prom news,
Yes, we've got the Utah High School elects state's first trans prom queen, which is wonderful. Salt Lake School of Performing Arts elected Maka Brown prom queen, first trans queen voted prom royalty in the entire state. Love her statement. She said, "The people at my school are so accepting and so supportive. They accept me exactly as I am. It's a scary thing when you first come out and tell people you're transgender, but everyone has been great. My friends at school have helped me to live an authentic life and be who I am." Beautiful story.
I love it. It's so interesting that like proms and homecomings have become such a great example of showing how much like the next generation is truly, truly moving beyond the struggles that we're still dealing with culturally.
Absolutely.
That they just don't care. And not only do they not care, the people who are bravely stepping forward and saying, this is who I am, then they're voting for them and celebrating them and supporting them. I just think it's amazing.
I love it. I love it too.
Way to go, kids.
And in Salt Lake City.
Utah.
So we got there's a lot of good news going on
There
this
is.
week.
We're focusing on the positive. I mean,
Yeah.
we'll get to some bullshit
We got
later.
Cyndi Lauper in the news.
Cyndi Lauper and her True Colors Foundation works tirelessly to support LGBT homeless youth. When the Memories Pizza thing happened, they started a GoFundMe #Pizza for Equality and raised $160,000 for their foundation working with LGBT homeless youth. And she isn't just someone who puts her name on the organization. She actually testified before a Senate Appropriations Subcommittee last week explaining the real-life terms and experiences facing homeless youth today. And she actually revealed that she was homeless at one point, which was not a well-known piece of information. She said, listening to these stories changed me. Maybe there's something I can do besides just being a famous person and singing to them. So she started the True Colors Fund. Basically, the kids come out and then they get thrown out. The truth is, they didn't choose their identity. You know, it's like choosing your color of your eyes. You know you're born that way. It's a faith issue. I implore you not to pray to God to change your kid. Pray to God to change your heart. And I just found that amazing. And similarly, Miley Cyrus just this week launched an anti-homelessness, pro-LGBT organization she's calling the Happy Hippie Foundation, a nonprofit that rallies young people to fight injustice with a series of exclusive backyard sessions shot at her own house, including performances with Ariana Grande, Laura Jane Grace, Joan Jett. And the Facebook videos of the songs will prompt viewers to donate, and the funds will be used to help create digital support groups for vulnerable kids and their families. In the interview, when she did it, Miley Cyrus said, "I'm fighting for people I don't know, but it's also a fight for people I do know and people I'm close to and love. All these things that I do get all this attention, but then what do I do once I have everyone's attention?" And this isn't her first time. She stood up at the VMAs and had that homeless youth speak on her behalf, and I love that. She's still only 22 years old, and people have been, gawking at her like sort of rebellious phase, but already she's turning that attention to really positive things, and I will applaud any celebrity that draws attention to something more important than themselves.
Yeah, and she is talented. I really do love her music. I mean, I go, everything's about spinning class for me.
Why not?
When
It
they were
should
playing
be.
Wrecking Ball, I was like, yay, yay.
I
So-
still love that song.
Oh, it's a great song. Anytime anybody redoes it on The Voice, I just get I go, you better do this good.
And that Anne Hathaway lip sync battle brought her back into like the public's good graces.
So, Miley, we applaud you. Now we do have a couple of negative stories, both church-related. Florida Episcopal Church cancels the baptism because of two dads. This really surprised me. Rick and Eric McCaffrey shared their story on Facebook, and what basically happened is they have a little son, Jack, and they wanted him to be baptized, and it was scheduled, but they were recommended for a later service, not the main service, because there were conservative people who opposed it. And the dean actually, 3 days before the baptism, canceled this beautiful event and said, "It's not forever. I'm sorry, but there is exposure to this that has brought out some haters." And they're going to meet with the family this week. But how Episcopalians, I mean, they're so usually known for being liberal. I was a little bit surprised at this. And but you had this great quote. He said, Jack, from one of the dads, Jack's baptism turned out to be the very opposite of what it should have been. It became about Jack having two dads rather than a community opening its arms to a joyful little soul, one of God's children. How can you do this to a child? I mean, shame on those conservative people, but also shame on the people who kowtow to them, I believe.
Well,
You know,
yes and no. I get, yes, you're right. But I also, the dean did talk about this is the first time this would happen in our church. And basically, I feel like what they're saying is we didn't do enough to prepare to make this not a problem, because the fact that he said this is not forever, this is not now, it's essentially he thought it was going to go easier than it did, and they are still running a church and need to bring the whole community along with them. And I hope that in these meetings that they're having this week, that both the individual church and the diocese above them reach a quick resolution. And maybe that the way, because these two men are handling it very sensitively and they haven't lashed out at the church because this is a community they want to be a part of. So I hope that cooler minds continue to prevail, and maybe by next week we'll be able to report that Rich has shared that they've worked it all out and rescheduled it. I think giving people the time and space to grow is an important part of the process as well.
And exposure is important. And I think, and one thing that is positive about both of these stories, we've got one more where a lesbian couple was fired from Christian daycare for living in sin. Kelly Bardier and J.C. Pfeiffer were fired last month after their employers became aware of their relationship. They both worked at the Alma Methodist Early Childhood Learning Center in Winter Park, Florida, as daycare workers. But the director, the school's director, heard the rumors that they were dating, and they were called into the director's office and told that if they used these words, continued to live a life of sin, they would be terminated. And then she said, but if you decide not to be gay anymore, you can keep your job. So they were fired. But now the United Methodist Church is supporting the Employment Non-Discrimination Act and is going against this firing. What I'm seeing in both of these stories, which I like, is that there's conflict within the congregations. There's conflict within. So it shows not so much with our former religion, the Baptists, not doing it very much, but you see some progress being made.
Absolutely. And I think it's growth spurts are painful, but it is because many Methodist churches support it. But of course, even within the denominations that have come in support of these things, there are more conservative churches, and it seems like this daycare is run by one of those. But so it seems like they're being pressured from the top down to change this rather than from the bottom up, which that is a huge change, and I think really exciting to see. However, so moving on, and related, because I think Rich, and that's why I said I love the way that Rich and his husband are handling the situation with their Episcopal church, because a lot of times how we react does dictate progress as well, because this next story I find disappointing. There were two North Carolina churches that were vandalized with pro-gay messages. Bales Memorial Wesleyan Church in Jamestown and Grace Baptist Church in Greensboro had signs broken and windows. They were egged and silly screened, and a church bus was keyed. Phrases were spray painted on the walls like gays cray and straight support and a rainbow. When more than $10,000 in damage was done. And I am all for like violent verbal attacks on people that are bigoted. But when you cross over into actually doing physical damage to a property, you neutralize any positivity of your message. You lose the moral superiority, because that is not a productive form of protest.
I agree with you, and I think you're right with verbal. And I also, when you brought this story to my attention a couple of weeks ago, I showed you that church sign, which I love, and John's got it in the room, where those boys there was a church sign that said homosexuality is a sin, and they just took the S off and made is in, and were real silly. And I thought, okay, that's not too much damage there. They changed the church sign and went viral and made a little point and didn't hurt anybody.
Yeah.
They didn't steal the S. They probably just dropped it on, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So, but you're so right. This negates our message.
It does,
it
because you can
does.
neutralize all of the rightness that you have in your argument by the actions that you take. And I get that it's extremely frustrating, and I get that churches have done a lot of damage to a lot of people. It's something we talk about on a regular basis that we are super passionate about. But responding with violence or damage to someone, either physically, personally, or to their physical property, like, you that's not right in any argument.
Absolutely.
We have to be better than them.
Absolutely. And you don't hear this much of that, but, it did happen. And then more Texas bigotry. Airbnb removes Texas property from their listing after anti-gay discrimination, and Jonathan Wang and his partner Brett booked 2 nights at a home in Galveston for a friend's wedding. The homeowner, Heather, confronted them asking where his wife was. He said, this is my husband. She said, I thought you were bringing a wife. He goes, I didn't say specifically. Is that going to be okay? She said it is not. They were forced to find a hotel room in the last minute. And then she said that her property is straight friendly. And it says that at the bottom of the listing. It was disclosed it is straight friendly. They said when asked if she rents her home to same-sex couples, she responded, that's none of your business. That's my private home. Well, guess what, bitch? It's no longer your private home when you're renting it out. It's not. You are absolutely, and you're listed on Airbnb. And I love that they said, fuck you. Took them off. Took her. They're no longer listed. So her little business is in trouble now because the Airbnb said we have zero tolerance policy for discrimination. Not only did they reimburse them for that, for what they had paid for this, hater, they also Airbnb paid for their hotel room. So it turned out okay, but.
And I love
Heather.
that this is continued evidence of how many businesses are being proactive on their own. They're not waiting for an outcry from anyone else. They're just doing it because we want to run. This is the way we want to run our business. The story, like it was already, they had canceled her listing as the story broke. Like when these 2 guys reported it, they didn't respond because there was a public outcry. They just said, this is the way that we want to operate our business in this country. And that is amazing to continue to see.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big theme in the new movie. We're about to do a Very Sordid Wedding, where people are saying you can't come in here if you're gay or if you don't have a shirt.
Well, now this next story is one of the worst examples of what happens when parents who are extremely religious are terrible to their LGBT children. A 19-year-old UCLA student returned home from his summer break, bringing his boyfriend. His parents reacted extremely negative, so he left and went back to California to spend the summer with his boyfriend's parents, who were very accepting. On Facebook posts, his parents begged him to turn his life back to God and lead himself away from the perversions of the flesh. They convinced him to come back to Texas to work it out. Once he got there, apparently his parents had rigged an SUV to be unable to open from the outside. They allegedly drove their son to a property they owned where their father held his son down while his mother parked the SUV in a field in direct sunlight. Then they closed the car and left him locked in the car for 13 hours in 117-degree heat. A passerby on the road managed to see the SUV off-road and thought there had been an accident and found the young man flushed and passed out in the truck and had to smash the windshield in order to get him out of the car. The parents are currently in jail.
Good.
And charges are being prepared. But this is one of the worst stories I've actually heard I can think of. I mean, they literally could have killed him.
It seems like that was their intent. I mean, how could they put somebody in heat and think that they're going to survive? I don't know. It seemed like to me if it hadn't been for this hero that's passerby, this young man would have died.
I mean, it doesn't say in the story, but it's like, did they like leave him in the field and drive away? Was this like, we don't understand how physics work and what's going to happen inside the car? I mean, it is really one of the more horrifying stories I've heard in quite some time.
Did they not release the names of of anybody here? Because he lives here in L.A. I would love to get him on our show. 19-year-old.
Well, you can do that.
Well, I'll try. You got success. You reached out today. We got some a good guest coming on. Okay, we real quickly applaud the Bold and the Beautiful because trans actor has landed a role. Scott Turner Schofield will be joining the cast of the Bold and the Beautiful. His character Nick is described as a sort of transgender mentor to fashion model Maya Avant, who's in the center of a cliff-hanging, inducing storm revolving her gender identity. So very cool that they've cast a real. We've had a call for this for a long time. The trans community and. And
Well,
it's
because
happened.
one of the big things, a lot of the trans community is frustrated by trans actors not getting to play trans characters, and part of that goes to the fact that in high-profile projects, they want high-profile actors who will get publicity for a project. Well, the only way to make more famous trans actors is to give trans actors opportunities, and this is a great way to start. Many famous actors started with roles on soap operas, so it is very
Absolutely.
much the way that many great big careers begin. And maybe Scott Turner Schofield's going to end up a household name like Candace Cain and Laverne Cox, and we can and Ian Harvey, and in order for there to be more and more trans actors who will be able to play great big roles. So that's really exciting.
And they just won the Emmy for Best Daytime Drama. So
Well, look at them.
Yeah, they do it all right.
All right, well, of course.
Let's go to the lowbrow news.
We have to have a nonsense story every week. Now, I feel like this is a very touching and moving story, so you all can decide for yourselves.
Moving? Did you just say
Yes,
moving?
moving. Netherlands-based designer Mark Sturkenboom has created a device called 21 grams. It is a memory box that allows a widow to go back to the intimate memories of a lost loved one, according to his website. It's just that this memory box happens to be inside a dildo.
Okay.
That's correct. You heard correct. It is a glass urn. It allows you to place your loved one's ashes inside a dildo. 21 grams of ashes, to be precise. Now, he suggests you can bring nostalgic moments from your life with your loved one into the act, like your lover's perfume and their favorite music, which will open a window to go back to the moments of love and intimacy. The case comes with a scent diffuser and also functions as an amplifier. You can place your
diffuse?
Yes, a scent, so you can add, their perfume to the moment. And there's an iPhone place inside that lets music play through the forget-me-not flowers on the sides of the box. Now, lest you worry that someone else might use your dildo urn instead of you to have an intimate moment with your deceased lover, the box has a lock, so no one else can sleep with your dead lover's ashes.
I feel a lawsuit coming on because it's glass. You get a
There's
little.
lots of glass dildos. That's not a new thing.
Don't you think that though? But can they break? Can they break? Come on.
I've not ever heard of that. And they sell glass dildos at the Pleasure Chest and all sorts of places all across the country. It's just a solid piece of glass with a stopper at the end.
You seem to know a lot about this.
Well, what are you, new to sex toys?
Well, I'm not big in. I'm not just. To be honest here, I don't use dildos.
I hope y'all are watching on the webcam, because suddenly here I am talking about glass dildos and Del Shore's face turned a little bit red.
I'm like, no. I have a dildo in my home, and what is it used for, Emerson?
He puts his bracelets on it.
It's my bracelet holder. It's so big. I just thought that this is what it's good for.
Well, in case you want to be...
It was a gift from somebody.
Well, hey, to each their own. So if you want to continue to be intimate with your lover after their passing without being a necrophiliac, this is an option for you.
Oh my God! And I will judge you harshly. Okay,
Flashing on.
More Texas news. Texas gay Boy Scout can't be
No, that headline's wrong. It's in Oklahoma. Sorry.
Oh, well, that's our producer, our copywriter, who Emerson is all of those titles.
Well, the link was there. You could have fixed it too.
Yeah, well, okay. Tanner Moody is an Eagle Scout from Oklahoma. He was offered a job at Hell Scout Reservation for the summer. In his interview, he was honest, and he said that he was gay, and the offer was rescinded. Now, the difference is that we saw a couple of weeks ago, or a few weeks ago, in New York, a gay Eagle Scout was able to work at a summer camp. So I guess that's the difference between New York and Oklahoma.
Well, it's essentially New York is going against the national Boy Scouting current policy and allowing their gay Eagle Scout to be employed at their particular camp, but Tanner in Oklahoma is not. So hopefully, as Tanner and what's going to happen is, because they're allowing gay youth scouts, you're going to continue to have gay Boy Scouts graduate to become adults.
Right.
And so I think that the policy will eventually change, because when those boys turn around and want to work at the camps that they grew up going to and teaching other boys the great things that they learned there. Hey, I've said before, I was a Boy Scout for 10 years and loved it. And it was an incredible experience for me. And, they really do wonderful work in encouraging all different kinds of boys to excel in outdoors and teamwork and lots of things. And so hopefully people like Tanner will help contribute to changing that sooner rather than later.
I'm noticing that John is over there laughing, and I know it's
I
not
do
at
not
this.
care, Kate
No,
Westmoreland.
it's not at this story. Tell the chat room we have moved away from the dildo story. We are done. Okay, onward.
And I love this story. You know, as because of our personal background in our project, Southern Baptist Sissies, we spend a lot of time because here in America, the predominant faith is still Judeo-Christian based, and so we don't do a lot of talk about other religions' interactions with their LGBT members, and I like this story because of that. Parvez Sharma is a gay Muslim man born in India but now based in New York, and he has done a documentary film about his experience of undertaking the Hajj. For those who don't know, in the Islam faith, that is a devotional pilgrimage to Mecca in Saudi Arabia that Muslims are supposed to do at least once in their lifetime. Now, homosexuality is punishable by death in Saudi Arabia, and photography, even with camera phones, is frowned upon, if not officially banned. He has created a new documentary film called A Sinner in Mecca, discussing his reconciling his sexuality with his faith, very similar to what we have done with Southern Baptist Sissies and the Southern Baptist denomination. And it premiered in Toronto at the Hot Docs Film Festival. Now, as a result, he has received hate mail and death threats. He described himself as a defiant pilgrim in his film as a call to action to all Muslims to change the things that need to change within 21st century Islam. And I love that. And it's like, because I responded to it greatly because I felt like it was his version of doing within his faith, you know, much of the journey that you went on with Christianity in leading to Southern Baptist Sissies. So since we don't often talk about the conflict between LGBT and the Muslim faith, I thought it was a really great story that he's agitating and exploring that issue for himself.
Yeah, it's sad he's getting death threats, though. I got one when I was in Dallas, just one.
Yeah,
But,
which weirdly transitions into this next story.
Well, this is just awful. It's the Kill the Faggot video game was created and uploaded by Scaldic Games to Steam's Greenlight section, and the game description for Kill the Faggot read, "Hate gays, want to unleash your frustration with the LGBT community? Well, now is your chance. Murder gays and transgenders while avoiding killing straight people. Get points before time runs out." Can you believe this? It didn't last long. It was taken down very, very quickly. Lots of complaints, but it was just awful, nasty, and they were asked for an apology, and he says, "As for an apology, that ain't going to happen to everyone who got offended. Good, that's what we're going for. Just wait till our next game that we're working on. It's going to be way more offensive as this one." They can't even speak correctly. So 2 hours. It lasted 2 hours. That's 2 hours too long.
And it relates to a really serious issue. You know, I'm not a video gamer, and it's not a community that I've been greatly involved in, but they have been going through a big, long journey with a thing called Gamergate that I can't go into all of the specifics of. But there is an incredible backlash in that community at times to female game developers. There are large communities of LGBT people. There's a very strong trans voice in the gamer community, as well as gay and bisexual and lesbians, because it's like comic books. You know, lots of LGBT youth feel sort of disconnected, and they find each other in these communities that are in these role-playing games and in different kinds of things. And so that is why, like, to us, this is offensive out here, but it's very specifically directed within the gaming community at the fact that are portions of their community that are strongly and incredibly viciously hateful online and to the LGBT members of the gaming community. So this sort of represented the struggle that they have in their community.
Well, let them, create something more offensive and let it be taken down. They're not going to make any money. So.
Right?
All right.
So continuing, flashing on, this sort of relates, we talked a lot about that Out Hotel and what do we do about gay Republicans, and I really enjoyed our discussion about that last week. Well, this week's a Fox News contributor named Guy Benson has come out. He is promoting a book that is coming out shortly called The End of Discussion: How the Left's Outrage Industry Shuts Down Debate, Manipulates Voters, and Makes America Less Free and Fun, co-authored with a woman named Mary Catherine Ham. They're both extremely conservative. So he's been doing a round of interviews because in the book he reveals that he's gay, and he has been a conservative pundit of some note. So he did an interview with Chris Geidner at BuzzFeed, and he said that he is someone who cares more about a nuclearized Iran and the failures of Obamacare than most gay issues. He said, "Gay rights is not something that dominates my attentions or my passions. That may seem incongruous, that may seem counterintuitive to a lot of people, but the issues that I care about most undergird the reasons why I am a conservative and have been forever and will be a conservative moving forward." He responded to those that label all gay conservatives as self-loathing. He said, "I think that's extraordinary, closed-minded, and betrays a lack of imagination discrimination at the very least. I'm for civil marriage, I'm for non-discrimination laws, but I think there should be broad carve-outs for religious organizations in particular, and narrow carve-outs for closely held businesses that serve the wedding industry. I think a lot of gay people have felt for generations, obviously, that they have not been treated fairly, and I don't think that coming to a point of social harmony and then pushing further in this almost vengeful, let's get them hounding people out of jobs way, it's not productive, it's not good for the country. So this gets back to, I felt like it was such an interesting return to what we were talking about last week. Up until now, my impulse has always been like, if you're a gay Republican, like, I sort of don't know what to say to you because you're arguing against our rights. And maybe because of this gay hotel thing, we know I have a contrarian personality type. The minute that everyone thinks something, I tend to lean towards well, wait a minute. And I think I disagree with his base points. Nuclearized Iran and those kind of things are not more important to me than our equality and human rights. But I do wonder, is there some room to leave for conservative members of our community to articulate viewpoints that aren't specifically about gay issues as their personal priorities? I guess what I'm asking, what do we do with them? Do we not associate with them at all? With them at all? Do we see them as traitors? How are you seeing it now?
Well,
I'm
curious. This brings me to at my show, my new show. I ask, are there any Republicans here tonight? Because I start the show with you. This my new show, Singularly Sorted, where straight men are already nervous and Republicans are already pissed off. And I had so many that admitted it. And I made light of it, and I said, well, you know what? I'll take your money to counter all of the shit that you try to pass against us. And many of them talked to me afterwards, and they all have the same, not so many of the gay ones, but it's all, we're fiscal. So my theory, when you're gay, when you're this person, who is fighting for his rights? I mean, or does he want them? It sounds like he's not even that interested in them.
Well, I mean, it sounds he supports it, but there's also why I think it's interesting to keep having this discussion, because we are starting to reach the place where, if same-sex marriage becomes the law of the land in June. Then we started reaching the point where I think you are going to start hearing from more gay conservatives, because they believe that, now that there is equality for gay people.
There you go.
Now, but it doesn't change the fact that we still have to fight for trans rights, and you can still be fired in places for being gay. Like, it is still not, there are still lots of equality issues. But do we gain something now by having members of our community represented in the Republican Party to agitate over there? Because what I did see, he did an interview on Fox News with Megyn Kelly, who has a huge show, saying, I'm a conservative pundit and I'm gay, on a network that preaches fear and to crazy old people, basically. They watched a homo on the network be supported by the network. Is that doing something positive as well?
Possibly.
So, I mean, it's an ongoing discussion, but I think it's interesting.
I'm also interested to see, after he came out, how they treated him. Because
but that's what I mean. Like, they're doing, like, they did the big interview.
I don't mean just Fox. I mean the listeners. I mean the viewers.
Right.
I'm going to see what kind of mail he has gotten this week. We got to move on. We're going to move on.
Well, let's skip in, check in with Crazy.
Okay. All right. Well, we got Josh Duger. You want to hit we already did it once. Josh Duger, I mean, this is the son of those people that just, are like rabbits, breeding. And he said, Josh Duger, I believe he's the oldest one. He says, his quote is, right now in America, there is an agenda to silence people of faith, those who hold a dissenting opinion. That's not what America was founded on. America was founded on respect, tolerance, and really not discriminating against people based on their religious convictions. Interesting to me that now he is saying that they're being discriminated against after so much discrimination towards the gay community. Oh, now they're being discriminated against. But this is the greatest quote. He says, only one other country in the entire world has ever redefined marriage, and that was Brazil, when they stepped in through the court system to do that. Now, the truth is that 18 countries worldwide have approved same-sex marriage. So listen, motherfucker, Josh Duger, get your shit correct. If you're gonna spout this nonsense, don't come off as ignorant. There's a way to be intelligent and preach hatred at the same time. That's my advice to you.
Yes.
Asshole.
Bless your bigoted heart. All right, and what's gay in sports ball? We have two really interesting stories. I don't understand the sports ball, but I like the stories. Hillsdale College is considered to be one of the most conservative colleges in the country, and an email went out asking all the members of the community, including athletes, coaches, students, faculty, and alumni, to pray against the evil same-sex marriage rights being considered by the Supreme Court. Now, one of its most recent alumni is Derek Shell, a basketball player who came out publicly his senior year at Hillsdale in 2013. He wrote them a letter back on his Facebook page that I loved. He said, "I've never been one to shut my ear to an opposing argument or point of view. However, this is a step too far. I have tried to describe my college environment and experience to some friends and family, and this is a good example. Imagine being a closeted, scared, struggling student and receiving this campus-wide email that sends to alum as well. I met good, kind people in my time in that little town in Michigan, but today I am ashamed, disgusted, and angry. This is violence, hatred, and ignorance personified. My heart is heavy from my Hillsdale family today. When I put a ring on my husband's finger, I'll be sure your invitation is lost in the mail. Instead, I'll say a prayer that you discover some love and stop hiding behind the fear of something that doesn't affect you at all." I love that response from Derek.
I love it too, and that's what I'm talking about. If you're going to make a statement, do it with intelligence as well. There's passion there is intelligence, and we're going to listen.
And it does turn out that actually the email was written by a student sent through the chaplain's email, and a commenter on the Outsports story said the Dean of Men has reached out to gay students to apologize for it, suggesting it was not approved by the administration. But even more interesting, yesterday and today, Sid Ziegler at Outsports has been doing reporting on 3 football players have been in a Twitter argument about it, with 2 of them offended by the email and the wording of the email. And then one who supported it, who compared worrying about offending gay people by standing up against same-sex marriage to not standing up against murder to not offend serial killers.
Oh, God.
But those 2 other football players from this very conservative school were challenging him, and I think this goes back to what we were talking earlier about the religious denominations, that many people inside these traditionally conservative and religious organizations are speaking out and speaking loudly, and their voices are even more important than those of us on the outside criticizing it.
Absolutely. It turned into a very positive story. And we're going to have Sid on the show in a couple of
Yes,
weeks,
we are.
right?
Because I don't understand sports ball, and we talked to him today. He runs Outsports website, which is where we got a lot of our gay sports ball news. So in 2 weeks, he'll be joining us for an entire show about sports ball and gay. And one final really quick story, because it was cute and delightful. At the LA Dodgers game on Saturday night, the kiss cam landed on 2 gay men who happen to be husbands, and they kissed romantically and lovingly, and the crowd cheered loudly. There was not a boo to be heard. Rick Simone and his husband Steve were those 2 gentlemen, and I love that.
Yeah, big shout out to them.
I mean, I
we
don't
got their
understand
picture.
why they were at the game, because I don't understand sports ball.
I mean, we'll
But,
ask Sid about that. He'll
I
know.
approve
He seems
all
to love
kinds.
it. Well, that's our show, y'all. We came in on time. We did it, Emerson.
As always, thanks you guys for listening.
Thank you so much, and we will see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Tony Sweet is next.
Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network.
'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven.
A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at uenradio.com.